Some of these critics, these pundits.
I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
They like to play the hard man when they're on it. It's not very pleasant when you're trying to manage a team. All you're looking for is a bit of civility and a bit of decency, but they just miss you like you know, you have nothing to do with the bloody occasion.
8:20, Friday morning. Good morning to you, wherever it is you are at. Do keep your comments coming into us. Plenty flooding in about Liverpool, Manchester United, and plenty more besides as well. If any thoughts about the GAA, particularly for the next 10 or 15 minutes, do lash them into us. Myself and Owen are now joined for the weekly Quick Picks. Will and Tommy, good morning to you.
Morning, lads.
Morning.
What's happening?
How are you? All good?
Yeah. We do want to remind our...
Sunday, Friday of a bank holiday, Adrian. All looks like it's set up for a nice weekend, and now we'll have a strike rate of probably around 15% of the quick picks to ruin it for everybody.
yeah, we'll have a look at the scoreboard in a minute, Will. But before all of that, I want to remind our audience, and maybe it could be breaking news, some of our audience on that the football pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue are hitting the road this summer, and we want our audience to be there. Now, this is, I must confess, Tommy's 15th time to be on air to talk about this. So we can put that out there, Tommy. But first stop on this summer tour, you're off to Castlebar.
Going to Castlebar, Adrian. We're really excited. It's June the 2nd. Tickets are available now. Are they still available? Or we'll find out in a little while. I think they were going very fast yesterday. So tickets are available now, and it's in Mayo, but it's not going to be just about Mayo. So if you're from a neighbouring county, it's the week after the Connacht final. Qualifiers are coming up that weekend. I've had a couple of clubs onto me already. They're thinking about getting a bus down, bit of a team bonding session, stay in Castlebar that night. June 2nd is the Thursday before the bank holiday weekend.
I'll only give you a few recommendations for pubs on there as well. He's basically Castlebar's
there is only one pub that matters in Castlebar, of course, which is McBurn's. Will there be medium and chips for the wider public that night, I wonder, rather than, just people who've done the town of service?
Remind us what the medium is.
It's half a pint. Well, if he likes you, he'll fill it up to about 7/8 and chips from Supermax.
I think
half
only
a pint of what?
Guinness.
He pours half a pint and serves it up to you.
Adrian just doesn't get it.
I mean, I want people to go to the show, but
Adrian just doesn't get it.
Adrian, you wouldn't be getting.
I'm not surprised whatsoever.
People get it.
Adrian will be. Are you going to bring a case of wine with you, and you're going to bring your own cheese?
No. Listen, I'm that's proper Guinness territory. But I mean, I can't. The half pint stuff I just can't have.
What's your drink of choice?
It's terrible. Guinness.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Guinness or a nice glass of red wine.
I'm sure it is.
OTBSports.com/events. You get more of this type of banter on the stage on the night. Tommy's guaranteeing it.
Well, no, I'm guaranteeing points. It's an over 18s event, just to let people know. So I'm guaranteeing points.
Castlebar, June 2nd, place to be. You might or might not see Owen. He's got form down there, so it could be a special appearance. OTBSports.com/events to get your tickets now. Right, quick picks. Have we got a table of what happened last week?
No.
We don't, right. Thanks, Will. That's I'll take whatever help I'm given. Are we starting afresh this week? Are we Tommy is sort of half running the show and not really running the show, and Cullum's not running the show. We'll have that conversation again. Let's get straight into the quick picks then.
More reboots than Spider-Man at this stage. Quick picks this year.
We have no other option but to get headlong into it, and we're going to start with the hurling. We're going to start with Clare, Cork against Clare, I should say, and this is split. Owen, myself and Tommy are all going Clare. Aisling and Will are going Cork, and there are a couple of these fixtures that were actually really hard to call. My logic here, Will, and I'll throw it to you to begin with, was for Clare was last weekend winning at Semple. Tony Kelly was my response when I came to predicting games last year and predicting Clare to win, and Cork just hard to judge at the minute. Any team beaten by Limerick are hard to judge, only that it was 11 points, and that was kind of what swung it for me in Clare's direction.
Yeah, the funny thing about last weekend was that it wasn't even the Tony Kelly show. Now, Tony Kelly did an awful lot, particularly with his running to create space for others, but it wasn't a case of Superman Tony last week. It was really Peter Duggan and Shane O'Donnell coming back into the team and adding an extra dimension to that Clare side against Tipperary. Now, Tipperary did not play well, but that does not take away from the fact that Clare were excellent. John Conlon, again, is settling in very well at centre-half back, and some of his runs forward were creating chances for others. Duggan seemed to catch every long ball that Clare put in, and Clare put in 3 goals. It was almost like a blitzkrieg attack against Tipperary. Now, in the second half, Tipperary offered up Clare offered up some chances to Tipperary. That Cork's quick forward line will be hoping to maybe exploit this coming weekend. The reason I'm backing Cork, though, is that I'm half expecting a response from them after what happened against Limerick. They were able to go to Fode Island last weekend. They had the week off. They've been able to maybe dust themselves off after what was a pretty comprehensive defeat that they took against Limerick in round one. And Cork's backs are up against the wall. Like, if they lose this game, not ideal they have to go to Semple Stadium because of, Ed Sheeran playing at Páirc Uí Chaoimh. They would much prefer this to be on Lee's side as opposed to having to go to a Semple Stadium where Clare picked up a win against Tipperary last week, as you mentioned. But I just think there's maybe a kick in Cork, and I'm backing them to provide a response. But to try and back this Cork team when you see how things went in the league final, how they went against Limerick in the 2 games that mattered so far, I realise that I'm probably going slightly against logic expecting this Cork team to do it. But I've been impressed in some other games by Cork this year. It's just if we can see a performance like, say, the second half against Kilkenny in the league semi-final, or some of the games like Galway at home, which they played in the league, this Cork team has more than enough ability to take down Clare. But by golly, I'm not confident about this pick whatsoever.
I think they're favourites, aren't they, Will, Cork, to win this game? But
just about. But this is not one that if I was going down to the bookmakers, I'd want to be putting a whole lot of money on if I was going to back Cork, because if Clare hurl like they did last week, and if Cork are in any way flaky whatsoever, Clare go 2 wins out of 2, and a team who the bookmakers had made 5th favourites to qualify out of Munster will be really well placed to qualify. So aside from just the game itself, this is a really important match in the shake-up for the qualification from the Munster Championship. If Cork lose, I think it's all but done for them, because I don't see them beating Waterford, and if Clare win, they're in a really strong place to qualify.
Definitely, as far as literal mini league games go, this feels close enough to knockout, and it feels if Cork lose, you're going to have Darragh O'Shea next week saying the Cork hurlers are also a disgrace, and if they win, it'll be like, oh, Cork are back. Are they actually the second best team in the country? So I think that's the spectrum of outcomes here with regards to a win or a loss, and then obviously the very black and white notion of an extra 2 points on the board. And I think whoever wins this game is going to qualify out of the group with Tip or with Limerick and with Waterford. So it's just such a massive game. Like, for me, when I pick Clare, it's a very simple thing that you look at Cork getting castigated for their defensive performance 2 weeks ago, and Clare getting lauded for their attacking performance last week. Unfortunately, from our prediction standpoint, it's rarely that simple, and Derek McGrath this morning is making the point that actually there's been too much focus on the Cork backs. It's about the forward effort, it's about what they've been doing in the middle third of the pitch that needs more of a magnifying glass put on it. And that's where you might not fear for Clare, but they're probably weaker in those departments, and they would be up front, certainly on the evidence of last week. So that makes me very, very confused about this. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just edging Clare.
The more Will was talking, the more I was going with my own prediction there. Galway Kilkenny next. Owen, Aisling and Will all going Kilkenny, and myself and Tommy have made the wise choice here with Galway. And when you talk about Tommy agonising over which way to swing at this one, like the Kilkenny obviously edging them last year in the Leinster final, but generally over the last 4 or 5 years, Galway having just about the edge of them. You add in the Henry stuff, and it brought to mind actually the Brian O'Driscoll documentary that you chat with Henry that you produced last year, and the chat that he had in that. Do you remember he was talking about the Ballyhale stuff and how he would never be able to manage against his own, and that obviously was never going to apply at inter-county level, but it does tell you about the mindset of the man, and how I suppose, number one, how hard it's going to be for him, but number two, he'll want to drive it home to Kilkenny.
I agree with you. I think there could be a statement performance from Galway here this weekend. I think they're looking back much the same way Cork are looking back on that opening league game. I think they're going to come back with a response here. They were 6 points up on Wexford. They let it slip. Both teams had big wins last week against Westmeath and Laois. I don't think we can read much into that. I think I'm surprised the Kilkenny are favourites here. I'd like to get your take on this. Why are you strong in Kilkenny? I would feel that Galway possibly have it on them in the physicality stakes. I think that Galway are probably going to beat them when it comes to the long puck out. I think at times with Kilkenny there's a danger that we can build them up to be something that they were before. I don't think Kilkenny are the team that we've seen a couple of years ago. I just think that Galway are on the rise here and that they're going to take them.
Well, on the puck-out point, Galway have got the worst puck-out retention rate in the championship so far this year. Puck-out's actually been a big problem for them so far.
Have Kilkenny not been poor as well?
They've been better at winning secondary possession though after the puck out, and Kilkenny have been better at protecting their short puck out, or at least being effective with it. There's a really good piece if anyone wants to see it. I think I've plugged it probably in the hurling pod a couple of times now too, which is Sean Flynn's piece, which is Sean Flynn, the former Tipperary analyst who's put this together. That particularly Galway have got a problem where they go one step short and then don't get the ball up to the other end of the field. I think only 12% of their puckouts in the first couple of games have actually got into the opposition half, which has been a big problem when you consider, as Tommy has mentioned, that they've got a lot of big men in their half forward line. So in theory, you would imagine that mixing up the puckouts and maybe going a bit longer might actually give them more ball retention. But so far, they've been trying to work the ball through the lines. It's been, mixed effectiveness so far. Look, the thing is, I'd be a lot more confident about Galway if Conor Whelan was fit. And Conor Whelan's hamstring appears to be keeping him out for another week, maybe 2 weeks. So he's definitely going to miss this Kilkenny game. I think that strips a lot away from their full forward line. He would have kept Hugh Lawler incredibly well occupied this weekend in Salt Hill had he been fit to play. Galway have been just, again, very much the unknown entity is what's been said about Galway so far this year. Like against Wexford, as you mentioned, they're 6 points up going down the stretch, and even they've got a 4-point lead when it goes into injury time. They should have been closing out that game. And in the first half of that game, they should have been far more clinical, which they weren't up front. But if it clicks for them, and like if Colin Mannion particularly starts to pull the strings further out the pitch, this Galway team have got all the ability to take down Kilkenny this weekend. But Kilkenny have been really, really good this year. And like I take Taggy Fogarty's point on OTB AM earlier this week, which is that because of the way that the fixtures have fallen, really beating Dublin and Parnell Park is maybe the only big performance that Kilkenny have had to put in so far this year, because Waterford were already effectively qualified for the league final and they lost the league semi-final away from home against Cork. But Kilkenny have been solid, and I like the way that the fixtures fell for Kilkenny because they needed their players to come back in, especially the Ballyhale players. They had Laois and Westmeath in the first 2 weeks of this round robin, able to just ease it back in, get TJ Reid his first championship start against Laois last weekend, and now they look primed to go across the Shannon and have an assault on Galway this weekend. I fancy Kilkenny by a couple of points, and Kilkenny should sweep out their fixtures and be into the final of Leinster. I think there's a very, very good chance that Kilkenny go 3 in a row in Leinster this year.
Yeah, I think I'm with him on that. I think if you're ever looking for a compass on life in general, you can always look to the Star Wars prequels, and what we have this week is Anakin versus Obi-Wan Kenobi, and what Star Wars tells us is that the apprentice will get beaten initially. He will literally have the legs cut from underneath him, but he might come back a more darker force at some point in the future and eventually gain his revenge. So this Cody versus Shefflin rivalry may be something that we see over the next little while. This week I'm picking Cody over Shefflin.
All right. It might only have a couple of years in it, of course, for obvious reasons, but we'll see. On to the football, the serious stuff, Tommy. So here's we go with Tyrone Derry to begin with, and it's Tyrone across the board, apart from Tommy. Now, I do have form, obviously, see Galway, for underrating the underdogs, but you're not going to get caught, Tommy. You're Derry all the way.
Wow.
I'm Derry all the way. Can you say I'm Derry all the way?
It's down there in red and white. So
it's a big call from Tommy Rooney.
It is a big call. I just think this game is far closer than 3-1 or whatever the odds are. I think Tyrone are 1-3 on. Tyrone have had a game against Fermanagh, which is massive for them. And the last time we saw Derry, they had stuttered towards the end of that league campaign. But I just think Rory Gallagher has had his eye on Tyrone. He knew he'd be facing Tyrone, the All-Ireland champions, in the Ulster quarter-final. Rory Gallagher wants to win Ulster. He's a traditionalist. We had him on the football pod last year. Didn't want to hear anything about Proposal B because he wants to win Ulster. I just think that he's got this Derry side primed for this. I really do. Wasn't convinced by the Fermanagh performance by Tyrone. Those 2 goals they conceded late on, people can swat them away and say, oh, they'd switched off, or they were in a really strong position, and they're just championship football doesn't work like that. I just think things aren't 100% in that camp. I really don't. We know about the departures, and I'm not blowing it up beyond what it is. I just think that things aren't 100%. I think Conor McKenna being back, getting his suspension overturned is a big plus for them. I know Derry lost Kieran McFall, but Tyrone have lost 7 footballers in that camp that would be making a big difference in training or would be knocking on the door to get starting. I don't think that depth is there. Derry should have beaten Donegal last year. They have Shane McGuigan back. If McGuigan was there, they probably would be promoted and to be in Division 1 if he was there against Roscommon in the last couple of minutes. Probably would have scored that free. I'm back in Derry, boys.
Yeah, that's an interesting point on McGuigan, especially because I guess I kind of overlooked that when, like, one of my arguments here is that Derry tailed off at the end of the league. When you're missing your main scoring threat, chances are you're going to tail off at the end of the league. And like for me, I'm kind of using that as a sort of their form is on a bit of a dip, kind of like we were looking at Armagh at the end of the league, being like they're on a bit of a dip, and I think that kind of, those chickens came home to roost last week a little bit for Armagh. So I'm kind of looking at Derry in the same way, and the fact that this hasn't been a rivalry recently. This used to be, in the 90s, this was an absolutely ferocious rivalry. I think I speak for everybody when I say we want to see a fight this weekend. We want to see an all-out brawl this weekend, because that will signify that Tyrone versus Derry is back as a rivalry, and that will be the flag that to suggest that this thing is real and we have an actual contest. So that's the base we're operating off here, that we actually get, you know, a contest. I think it will be. I think Derry proved against Donegal last year they are able to mix it with the top teams, but I still think there's a long road for them to go before they actually beat one of these teams. Maybe they'll have travelled that and they'll get the job done this weekend, but I'm surprised you've actually gone for them to win the game as opposed to just saying it's going to be close to the weekend, Tommy.
And like also the Rory Gallagher wants to win Ulster, like, to use your analogy, Luke Skywalker wanted Darth Vader to be a loving father, but it was never going to happen.
Not to ruin that analogy, but he was the loving father.
He was.
Look at whatever.
Great dad.
Like, so what you're saying is Tommy's right after
he
all.
drank out of a coffee mug that said world's best dad.
Right. I mean, I actually, I'm buying the Tyrone are not all, might not be all that they're that they were last season, obviously, and the departures obviously will probably play out in the long run. I just don't believe it's against Derry. Westmeath, Longford. Let's have a gander. Tommy's not having that. That's fine. We've finally all concluded. We've all drawn the right conclusion on a game, and we've all gone for Westmeath. I really am.
Great.
This could be the high. When I talk about Liverpool earlier on, being at the high water mark of their trajectory, I feel that right now could be the high water mark of Westmeath summer, because I have to say that I have become disillusioned by predicting Westmeath to win games. They turned up at the end of the league. I mean, I don't even know if I feel as strongly as that, but let's go with that.
They didn't turn up against Longford, though, Adrian.
They did not. They scraped a draw against Fermanagh at the end. They beat Antrim up north, but, Will, as you absolutely rightly point out, that 4-point loss to Longford and Mullingar was the absolute kick in the stones that resulted in them not getting out of the riffraff, as I think I described it earlier in the year, of Division 3 and away from an area that they don't belong in. I have absolutely lost confidence in predicting with any sort of sense of certainty as what's going to happen with them, but like, they are, to make a case for them, they are, along with Down and Offaly, amongst the highest ranked, obviously, the teams that are I'm talking about the Tailteann Cup now, in the certainty that Westmeath are going to get to a Leinster final and again lift themselves up by the collar. So look, I don't know. I'm hoping that this weekend, and it's a hope now rather than with any great confidence, but that we can keep the Sam Maguire fire burning, and that it's not back to the Tailteann Cup with us.
Longford beat you in the league.
Yeah, 4 points, but
that's what cost you promotion.
It totally did. It absolutely did. But maybe that was the kick in the arse they needed. That, this, we talked about it at that time, that like Longford are this county that are very wound up by the Westmeath rivalry, whereas Westmeath don't really care about it. And maybe Westmeath were just a bit complacent in a way that's been removed now.
It's interesting as well, lads, for this fixture. We talk about Shefflin against Cody, where you've got Billy O'Loughlin, who finished his club career playing with St. Lomans alongside the likes of Ronan O'Toole and John Heslin, and he also relegated his native county Laois in the last round of the league. Longford actually finished the league pretty strongly. Offaly ended up playing both of these teams in challenge games over the last few weeks. Offaly put 5 goals past Westmeath and then went and could only score 112 against Wexford. But the reason that they probably couldn't score against Wexford last week was because the injuries they picked up against Longford the week before in a challenge game. So I think Westmeath will go back with Ronan Wallace even at full back for this Longford game. They've kind of been trying things out during challenge games since the league, but they played very well in the last game against Antrim. Actually finished the league reasonably okay after that Longford defeat, which took promotion out of their own hands. So I think Westmeath will be better than they were nearly a month ago when they played Longford in the league. But beware of the fact that Longford hammered Laois, and I know Laois conceded a lot against Wicklow last week, but when things were on the line in O'Moore Park against Laois in the last round of the league, Longford came and really delivered to stay up in that last round game. So this is actually quite a tricky one, but I think Westmeath just have enough across their panel.
Can I just say that I would have Westmeath down as one of my favourites for the Tailteann Cup. I really think that they're the type of county that could produce something in a competition like that. I think that they've been a very good place to do it. I agree with Will, it's going to be close, but I kind of think that Westmeath are going to have enough this weekend. John Heston didn't perform the last day, and home advantage is massive when it comes to championship. So I'm going with Westmeath.
Yeah, and challenge games. I mean, thanks for the information, Will, and all that, but it's just totally irrelevant on. I wouldn't be worried about changing your pick.
The only way we look foolish is if we all go for the exact same team and that team fails to win. So, no pressure, but our reputation of all 5 of us included here is on the shoulders of the Westmeath football team.
I've said before, and I'll repeat it again, that there is nothing that makes me, literally nothing on this planet that makes me more apprehensive than following Westmeath matches.
Not even global warming.
Particularly Will on Midlands 103. I have to say, there's nothing that makes me more apprehensive as to what the hell is actually going to happen.
I'm not sure if that's a positive thing about my presenting or the commentary or what way you frame it. It's hugely
positive across the board. The apprehensiveness is wound up in the fact that they just have an inability to thump mediocrity like Longford out the gap. So that's all I'm saying. Clare against Limerick.
That's the clip that comes back to bite him.
Yes. Clare against Limerick. Listen, well, again, I have form. Here we go again. It's Clare across the board. Tommy.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by this one. I'm going to the game tomorrow even. Both counties have had injury troubles over the last 2 months, quite a few. Limerick had a very strong Division 3 campaign. They were missing a couple of players in that league final. I really don't think we saw the best of Limerick. And even saying that, they probably still could have beaten Louth and probably should have beaten Louth, and we've given Louth a lot of credit for their Division 3 campaign. Limerick had a couple of goal chances. I think one, Josh Ryan could have been through on goal and he took a point. They were missing Brian Donovan. If Brian Donovan is back this weekend, he is a massive addition to Limerick. Limerick are definitely on the rise. There's really good stuff going on in the background in terms of academy level. They've probably lost a lot of players over the last 7 or 8 years that they could do it right now. There was a Munster Championship game a couple of years ago. Limerick's midfield was Will O'Donoghue and Garrod Hegarty. If they had the two of them this weekend in midfield, I'd be backing them. But I just think Clare have earned the right to be in Division 2 over the last couple of years. They're a very strong side. A couple of injury outs around a couple of key players, but most of their main forwards are back this weekend. And Cusack Park, home advantage, such a big thing in Championship. It sounds like a cliche, but it's not. It's such a big thing. So I'm backing Clare.
Well,
yeah, Clare, a good, solid team. Obviously, Limerick, a bit like I'm sure we'll talk about Louth in a moment, are coming with a huge amount of momentum behind them with the way that they've played in the league so far this year. But I think Clare probably just to step up on the opposition that Limerick have been playing. And yeah, as a result, I think Clare at home take this one against their neighbours.
All right, last one we're coming to is Kildare against Louth, and it's Kildare across the board. And as Tommy said, look, at Louth have been given plenty of credit. They've obviously thumped Carlow out the gap the last couple of weeks, and they are a coming team. But Kildare are also a coming team, but just at a different level on.
I think the forwards that are going to be on show this weekend are going to be absolutely excellent. It's obviously there's been a lot spoken about Sam Mulroy, and then obviously to a lesser extent Grimes and Byrne chipping in with I think goals each last week, wasn't it, in the 5-goal mauling.
Yep.
And then on the other side, that Kildare full forward line is something that I think we probably were excited about even before ball was kicked this year. Like, I mean, took a while to see Dara Kerwin actually get into that team because of injury troubles after that injury for Naas last year, and like obviously the rest of their talent in that full forward line has been spoken about. So like you could expect something chaotic and brilliant attacking wise to happen, just like we saw in the Leinster Football Championship last weekend. But we still have to talk about a team who almost stayed up in Division 1 against a team who are a Division 2 team and maybe would be doing well to establish themselves as a Division 2 team. So much like Clare Limerick, these are teams operating at different planes, but the chance of an upset isn't an outlandish one whatsoever. And I know Ger has been very, very worried all week about this fixture. But if Kildare have really moved into the next phase, then this is a fixture that they should be winning.
I think this could be one that one could be 10 or 12 points, like.
Here we go again.
Here we go.
Surely, these are teams like. But we're talking about Kildare.
4-5-10 last week.
Nobody's talking about Kildare winning All Ireland, right? But you are talking about them giving some of those contenders a serious push. Like, Louth deserve all the credit in the world. They thumped Carlow last weekend. That's their form in the championship. Carlow go on.
I think Louth would much have preferred this game to be in Navan. Laois losing meant that this game went to O'Connor Park in Tullamore. So I think Louth really would have preferred to be in Navan. They scored 5 goals against. I'm kind of agreeing with you. I actually think that
Carlow are bad.
Carlow are desperate, and like Louth, I don't want to be taken away from what Louth have done. Far be it from me to sort of be having a pop at random counties on. But all I'm saying is Kildare, on the face of it, like let's go around the table to wrap this up. What's your score differential here?
I'm very mindful that the last time Kildare went to O'Connor Park in a game around this stage in the Leinster Championship, I think Owen was covering it for Off the Ball on the day. They lost out to Carlow. I think Kildare probably by 3 or 4 points, but I don't think it's going to be much more than that, genuinely.
Tommy?
Like, Louth are flying.
Louth are flying. Louth have a very good record against Kildare. The last time Louth scored 5 goals in a championship match, lads, 1957. It was against Kildare, and Louth went on and won the All-Ireland that year. So, look, I'm not one for signs and referencing back to the 50s like some counties like Mayo. But what I would say is that Kildare could possibly, and this is more so a shout out for that team last night, Kildare could possibly start their forward line from the under 20s tomorrow. Some of them. Shane Farrell, number 12 in the midfield, was unbelievable. Adam Fanning and Owen Bagnall in the corner. Could probably start them on Sunday and they give probably win it, like.
What are you going for on? Points differential?
6. I'd be more interested in hearing how many goals there will be in this game. And I know that's reading a lot into what happened last week in the Leinster Championship, but I think we're going to go back-to-back weeks and some madness this weekend with the exception of Dublin winning well, I think. I'm
going to go for 8 points between them. I do think that if Bournemouth carry out, that's roughly what should be between them. I think. Actually, I don't know what the betting difference is.
Handicap is 5 points. I'm going for 4.
Points. I'll go for 8.
Hold on now. Have you been talked back from 12 points back to 8?
I said 10 or 12. I said 10 or 12. Will I said 10 or 12. Let's be clear. But I'll bring myself back to 8 just to be.
Louth won 7 games in a row.
I'm conservative, Will. So I'll come back a small bit on that. To clarify as well, what I was saying about Brian Code earlier on is that how long more will he be the manager of Kilkenny? That was the point. I sort of felt that everybody would understand that. It seems like there might have been a bit of confusion there. That's the point I'm making about that. And one comment here before we wrap it up. Sort Your Life Out on YouTube says the Tailteann Cup is dead on arrival. If the GAA, RTE, Sky can't pony up some cameras for Division 2 level championship matches, they definitely won't give a damn about other teams from lower divisions. And we won't know until we see the evidence of it. Go on, Will. Yeah.
I think there's only 3 games set to be televised as things stand. I don't know if they're going to change that, but you kind of feel like you're in some kind of underground society trying to find out about the Tailteann Cup, because we don't even know if there's going to be a preliminary round, because we have to wait to see what teams get to provincial finals. It's due to start on the last week of May. I think as things stand, because RTE put out the big wall chart of their fixtures for the year, I think they're showing both semi-finals and the final. I'm not sure if another broadcaster is going to step in to show earlier rounds, but at the moment, given that Sky's picks will be fairly limited at that time and they'll be taking quarters and semis in the All-Ireland Championship, it could just be 3 games and out in the Tailteann Cup on the TV.
And listening to some of the defeated managers last week as well, the fear is that the best Tailteann Cup players are going to be on show in the Boston County Championship as opposed to in the Tailteann Cup.
They do have to wait until their counties are out before they can play in the States.
Oh,
do they?
That comes with the official transfer paperwork and all that. I see. Didn't know that. That was probably a nugget in the football pod that I didn't hear.
No, it wasn't. It was there's a couple of quirks with New York and stuff, but no,
they might just go and enjoy themselves and not play.
Absolutely, they might just get out of there.
Oh,
anyway.
absolutely. And there's going to be a couple in every county that are going to go. But I also think that the counties are going to take it seriously. I do think what Will is saying, another broadcaster has to step in. Like Wicklow Laois last week, unbelievable. Imagine that game was televised, or we even had a YouTube stream. There was a huge buzz around the Clare in the 20s last night because TG Carr had it on a YouTube stream, and there was thousands of people watching it. They got to see a quality level of football between Clare and Dublin, and those lads are being talked about today. They're in the papers. People are going to remember their performances because they got to see them. Just put the games on.
Yeah, but also the reverse sort of European Super Cup idea. All the counties that are not Kerry and Dublin and Mayo and Donegal and Tyrone, and maybe it's sort of at Galway, it sort of ends there, should bandy together and do something about this. Like the lack of exposure and coverage for the counties that exist beyond that, which is 90% of counties, is awful. Like it makes you entirely switch off from it, and it's something needs to be done about that.
The only thing is, Adrian, the format to show it is actually there. Like they could use GAA Go. Like this weekend, GAA Go is showing Cork against Clare because it clashes with Kilkenny and Galway is on at the same time. That's on TV and RT, and GAA Go are showing the other game for a tenner. Because these games are going to have to be filmed for the Sunday game anyway, I think GAA Go should actually roll out a lot more Tailteann Cup coverage than maybe they would have planned beforehand.
What are they afraid of? They're afraid that people won't turn up and go to games. People want to go to stuff. But put it on for anyone else that wants to watch it.
Yeah, I'm with you, Tommy. Bosang David on YouTube says Carlow are bad, in inverted commas. Owen's comment from a bit earlier on just made me laugh out loud in an open plan office. Hope that becomes a clip. There was a lot of stuff going on there for a clip.
You're going to laugh at this. Carlow made it tricky last week for Louth. 5-10 to 10 sounds like the smashing. but Louth weren't flying last week. Now, I don't think a Mickey Hart side is getting beaten by 12 points, Adrian. I'm surprised you said that.
Well, I actually, if you rewind the tape there, Bill,
He said 6.
I went for 8.
It'll be 4 in 15 minutes.
I went for 8. Yeah.
Louth will be winning by Saturday.
Yeah.
Right. Fair play. Good luck.
Cheers.
Take
That's
it
the
easy.
Quick Picks.
I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
It is 10 to 9, or coming up on 10 to 9. Where did you say you're off to this weekend?
The
Kildare match.
Off to this weekend. I'm not going to. What do I have planned? No, I don't. I'm not going to a game this weekend.
What's now? The obvious follow-up question. What are you doing?
I'm not working at it. What?
No, I'm not
I
asking.
do have
What's your
something.
general?
I'm going to.
social
I'm going to
plans?
Punchestown today, but
Oh,
I
good man.
definitely have something for Saturday and Sunday as well. But I can't remember what.
Are you doing like it's reserved enclosure, sort of glasses of champers and the full?
Don't think so.
I'd
No.
imagine.
No, I don't think so.
We both know that's not true.
Is that? I do.
Yeah.
I do. Oh, brilliant.
Don't you?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, you do.
Ah, fantastic.
10 to 9. Up next, we're going to have an OTB AM debut for the former England international Matt Jarvis. First, Anthony Moyles joined Conleth Gilligan with Nathan last night. They spoke about how Derry, they were predicting how Derry could beat Tyrone this weekend.